What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Social Standard podcast. Today we have got the one and only Demi Bagby.
Hello. Wow, what an intro.
Hello.
Hello.
Gotta have a big intro because you're a big TikTok celebrity, right?
you.
So for our audience that doesn't know, Demi is a huge social media superstar. She just crossed 14 million on TikTok. You've got about 2.5 million on Instagram and a YouTube channel that's taking off really, really well. So, I mean, it's almost like there's no platform you can't do, which is really exciting. So we welcomed Demi to the Social Standard team a few months back, and it's been a super interesting time for us, kind of getting to know one another, getting a whole bunch of brand deals off the ground, and talking about kind of what the future holds for Demi. And so we wanted to take this opportunity to bring her onto the podcast, introduce her to everybody, and just give a lot of our brand and agency partners a little bit of an inside look into what it's like to be a top TikTok influencer. So Demi, what's up and welcome.
What's up? Thank you for having me. Stoked to be here. You are absolutely amazing. I have loved working with you the last few months.
Cool.
You've given such a light in my life, and I'm so excited to have such an amiable team around me to help just support all the goals that I've been striving for so long. So I'm just so excited to be here.
Yeah, awesome. Very cool. Well, I think it'd be super interesting for you to give our listeners the kind of the story of who you are, because if you check out her TikToks and if you haven't seen them already, check them out today. But you can move, right? I mean, you backflip your way into everything. I don't think we've seen a sport yet that you can't just sort of pick up and roll. Golf, it felt like, was a little touch and go. But I think
I was using the wrong driver, okay? My driver was $30 for a 5 to 8 year old, okay? I just need a real one and we'll be good.
Okay, all right. Well, I think there's probably a show now. But I mean, you drive NASCAR. You can fight. You can run an army obstacle course with officers running like yelling right in your face. And I mean, it's pretty incredible what you can do. And then the fitness side of things, I've seen you pull off some really interesting feats, and you're so great at really kind of pulling your audience in and educating them on how to get fit, that you've got your own app as well. So give us the backstory. Tell us kind of how you entered into this, I won't call it like CrossFit, but this sort of like high intensity training world, and like where you got your start.
Yes. So I actually did start in CrossFit. So starting from the very beginning, I grew up as a soccer player, and then I was a cheerleader for a little bit and encountered an injury. And then my first sport back from my injury was CrossFit. So I competed in CrossFit.
But not just an injury. You like broke your spine, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not like, oh, I injured my wrist. That's like I've completely debilitated my body.
Yeah. So I definitely had a gnarly one for sure. Mm-hmm. But I came back from that and started competing CrossFit and calisthenics, and that kind of morphed into like filming it and posting more of like a video journal online of my progress, because it was like really challenging for me to go from training 8 hours a day to nothing. So like posting it on Instagram, like I could see that progress, because when you see yourself every day, like you don't see that as much,
Totally.
So I'm like, okay, like I am getting stronger. Like I got this, because sometimes, it can be a little discouraging if you're not seeing that every day.
Absolutely.
And I can really empathize with people who ask about injuries or like unmotivation and stuff like that, because I've experienced that hand on. So yeah, and then now I just have a love for sports. I always have. And after that injury, I kind of like, I just love life so much more. After everyone was like, you won't do this again. I'm like, I will do this again, and I'm going to have the best time doing it every single day for the rest of my life. So since then, I'm like, I never picked one thing. So many people are like, oh, you should have picked one sport and been really good at it. But I can't. Like, I'm so passionate about just challenging myself that since then I'm just like, I'm gonna say yes to everything. I'm gonna do everything. I'm gonna see where it takes me, and I'm just gonna live. So that's where we're at. Just live it.
Yeah, just live it. I think that's great, but I think that's why people gravitate towards you, right? I mean, you have this incredible energy that you can, even in a podcast interview where we're like thousands of miles away, I can feel it through the screen, right? I mean, your audience absolutely feels that connection to you, and I think it's so important that you talk about, how you can relate to this, because I mean, TikTok, social media, all of that's all about authenticity, right? Definitely. No one cares about someone whose life is perfect and everything's great. Like that's not real life. That's not what people are tuning in for. Now, to get to where you are, it takes a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication. And I think you showing up every day with that positive attitude is, it's pretty incredible, right?
You have to. And I think that my favorite part about it is, at least what I get, people are like, I want to get to where you're at. And I'm like, look, I've been on both sides of the spectrum, and I can promise you that if you decide that you want to get there, like, that's enough to get there. But you just have to make that decision on your own.
Totally.
And you just have to decide, like, with my injury, I was like, I can sit here and I can go down this dark path, because we've all been there. Like, you can make that decision, but you could also make the more, optimistic decision where you're like, you know what, I'm where I'm at, and every day I'm going to work hard to make it better, and I'm just not going to complain about it. And I made that decision. I'm like, I'm here, I'm going to prove everybody wrong, but I'm going to decide right now that I'm not going to complain about it, and wherever it is, wherever I'm at, I'm just going to accept it and move forward. And since then, like, the rest of my life, no matter what challenges I have to overcome, I'm like, this is where I'm at. We're going to make the most of it, and we're just going to keep going. Walk, run, crawl, whatever that is. Like, we're not just going to sit here and pout about it, because we're not going to get anywhere. And I think just kind of with that, I can relate to so many people on both sides. I'm like, you can do this. Like, I promise you, like, you're amazing and you can do this. And sometimes, like, that's all people need to hear. I'm just so blessed to, like, have that opportunity, because I remember when I was there, I was like, I just wish someone could have, like, understood where I was coming from.
Sure.
And I wish there was someone that I could look up to and be like, they had to overcome something too. Like, that means I can do it. I didn't really have that. And not that there were people that weren't. I just didn't know anyone. So I want to be that person for people. And life's great. I'm just stoked to be here.
Well, and I think you see a lot of that on social media in real life, but I think social media gives you a really great chance to reach, now 14 million people on TikTok, 2 million on Instagram. I mean, you can impact so many people's lives in such big ways. And even when you were here in Nashville and we were out to breakfast, I mean, we went to a restaurant and like 5 people immediately recognized you, right? I mean, that's a big deal. And it wasn't like, oh, hey, are you, okay, cool. It was like, oh my gosh, you're Demi Bagby. You know what I mean? People were jazzed to meet you. It was like, they were excited, right? It wasn't just like, oh, cool, that's like somebody that's famous on TikTok. It's like, that's Demi.
I'm stoked. Like, and that guy too was like, dude, you got me into the gym. Like, nothing is more awesome than hearing that. Like, you're the reason why I've decided to make better decisions. Like, I want to be that person. I want to be a good influence on the world. So that's awesome. I was stoked on it. I was like, let's go.
Yeah,
make
totally.
the gains.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's huge, right? Because it's like, it's not only do you talk the talk, you walk it, and that's a big deal. And I think seeing it in person is just, to me, even I've been in the influencer space for over 10 years, and I'm still just so blown away by the people who really engage with their audience when they go out, being seen, being spotted. It's pretty incredible. So
thank you. Yeah.
I think that sort of like level of energy and positivity that you bring to the table has, I think, really set the stage for you to, not just be a creator, but to be so many other things. And we were talking about this a little bit before, but being a creator in and of itself is a full-time job, right?
100%.
Yeah,
I think it's so underestimated. There's so much going into it. And I think it's with anything, like, you never really know the behind the scenes, but to work like on your own and do your own thing as any type of business entrepreneur, like, that's a challenge on its own.
Oh, so totally. Yeah, absolutely.
It's pretty fun to see.
But you have your social media channels that you're constantly creating content for. You've got a full-time staff and a big team behind you doing a lot of this stuff. I mean, you're the brains behind it, but you've got a videographer to help you out creating a lot of content. Our team tries to supply ideas and connections and do a lot of different things for you as well. But on top of that, you've got Rep Wax, which is a business that you started. That's very much like in the creator economy, right? Plus you have a ton of long-term relationships with brands, right? Not as you do some like project-based stuff, but you have a tremendous amount of these like deep connections with brands, and it fosters, again, this level of authenticity. So, I think it would be really helpful for you just to talk about like, what is a day in the life of a influencer, a creator, an entrepreneur, someone who fully wraps themselves up into the creator economy. Like, what do you do on the daily?
Yeah, so it's a little bit, I think, more interesting from like, not like from my side, but as like a fitness, because I also have like my own personal goals and like training goals and so many things like that. Like, right now I'm currently training to like fight some sort. I do Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu. So like as an athlete, like I take that seriously as a full-time job as well. So
Sure.
I wake up, I train at 6 in the morning. It's nice to train in the morning because, I just get it out of the way. I feel good. I wake up motivated and no one's bothering me because it's early. I'm not getting text messages. Like I like to wake up, go over like my gratitude, go train at the gym and not even take the phone. I'm like, nope, this is my time to like work, And then it's
Totally.
like those habits take on the rest of the day of like the hard work and the discipline. And then that kind of comes down to like podcasts today, but phone calls and everything like that, just kind of making sure that everyone's on the same page. We're all working towards the same goal and just throwing out ideas that are just off the wall. Like I love sitting down, just having creative conversations to make something bigger, better, more awesome, inspire more people. And then obviously there's the whole like content side of things where it's like I'm very, very passionate about film. And I think that's why like content creation is so fun for me because I'm not creative artistically in the sense where it's like I can draw. Like you don't want to see me draw. Like I can't even hang man. But I have so many ideas in my head, and I love, like, making that idea come to life so people can see it the way that I saw it in my head. And then kind of, like, mixing the fitness and, like, relatableness into everything. Like, I just love it. Like, I'm thriving right now. I'm really stoked. But, yeah, I think, like, I can't go to bed not feeling accomplished. Like, and I think, I don't know if that comes from my injury. I don't know. Because I was kind of young at the time, so I didn't really have that phase to understand, like, what I would have been like without it. But, like, I have to go to bed, like, I live the best day. Like, if I were to die today, like, am I stoked with where I'm at? Did I communicate to my team the way I want to? Like, those, like, by the end of the day, if I can sit down, analyze the day, and set new goals for myself the next day, like, that's where I continue to stay motivated. And I don't know, like, I love talking to brands. I love giving them an eye of what it's like from someone our age, like their consumer. Like I can be their consumer as well as their creator. And I love just sitting down and strategizing those ideas to make something better. Like we're all here to like make the world a better place and come up with crazy ideas. And if we can all sit in a room and like make an idea just come to life, like, oh, that's my favorite.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I get that 100%. And you have your fitness app too, right? I think I left that out earlier, but that's just another thing that you also have on top of your plate, right? But I think it's so important for brands to kind of see that side of things where it's like you're waking up, you're training, you've got goals. Then you got to sit down and figure out like, okay, what needs to happen for Rep Wax today? What needs to happen for my fitness app? Where do I need to engage?
Definitely.
What's
It's
the
a lot.
next big trip? It is. And I mean, I think what's so cool is it's unlimited potential. But I think what I see a lot is creators almost getting overwhelmed with that, right? And so I think what's so interesting is you've been able to channel that and focus it in and create really interesting opportunities like the road trip that you and your team just went on. You were in 5 or 6 different states, I think, across the U.S., and that was, I mean, you guys were like going off-roading and like ATVs.
Every day it was something crazy. It was awesome.
I mean, that's the way to go though, right? And I mean, you think about like you fall into the fitness kind of category, I'd say fitness and lifestyle category, right?
Yeah.
If we want to try to put you in some sort of box. But what I think is incredible is you're also looking at like, how can I get into, boxing or fighting or, what's interesting with like NASCAR maybe, like what else can I do? How else can I continue to grow and expand, as a creator, but also as a business owner, right?
Yeah, and as a human, like
as a human, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I think that, like I said earlier, I'm so fortunate to be in my position. Like, why not seize every single opportunity that I can? Like,
Totally.
Go out and like be about what you're gonna say. Like, I tell people to just like enjoy their life, get out there, challenge themselves, and I'm gonna be doing that on my own too. So I think even that road trip, for example, like I got to experience so many new opportunities and show brands that there's so much more to like bringing a specific product or a campaign to life if you just do it and get out there. And like I think working with brands, especially, like, I get to take something that they have, an idea that they have, and make it that much more. And like, that's what I love. Like, I love making sick videos with products because, like, it can be hard sometimes. Like, you have something like a random little thing and you're like, what am I supposed to do with that? I'm like, you can do everything with it. You just have to, like, do it, you know?
Yeah.
So I love, like, my favorite thing is, like, getting a campaign and they give me, like, the details on what they want me to do. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And then, like, I just show out, and then I send them the video. They're like, I wasn't expecting that. I was like, yeah, like, let's go. Then, like, I'm, like, pushing the car and, like, getting the groceries out. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. It's, like, it's just going to be fun and different. And then, like, getting brands stoked on that and, like, showing their teams that, like, if you just, like, think about it a little bit more, like, you can make it that much better. Like, I don't know. I love it. I just love it.
Yeah. Well, it makes you a great partner for a brand too, right? And I think now, especially given how many influencers there are, and I would even use that term loosely. It's like you see some people just mail it in a little bit and just kind
It's
of,
the same thing.
Here it is. And exactly. But to kind of like reinvigorate the space and to continue to push it forward, I think that's why you're such a great fit for the social standard, right? Our tagline is always striving to set new standards.
Yes.
That's literally what you're doing.
I hope so.
with your channel, right? And I mean, it's hard to come up with content ideas, and it's also expensive, right? Because you have to go out, you have to travel, you got to find out who you know and network to get into XYZ place, and then have special privileges to shoot. It's all pretty time consuming,
Definitely.
energy
like, even
consuming.
just being able to film certain places, it's like people, like, y'all don't even know what it took just to get here. We haven't even done anything yet. Like, yo, I jumped 4 fences. I ran past 3 security guards. Like, y'all have no idea.
Oh man, on the move in the best way, right?
Definitely.
That's awesome. Well, what do you think? I mean, as brands look at sort of the creator economy, right? I mean, you're absolutely, like we were talking about, you're absolutely part of that with your own businesses and, your social following and all of this. Like, do you think there's a place for brands in the creator economy, or do you think that influencers are just going to be the new brands?
I definitely think there's a space for brands, but I think that, like, the problem is so many of the brands, like, look at either, like, the top of funnel or sometimes obviously the bottom of the funnel in their product, but, like, there's so much in between that, you know? And, like, my job as a creator from the top of funnel aspect is, like, I don't want to just go take a mirror selfie with your product. Like, no one cares. Like, we've seen that. That's aged out. Like, I need to show them, whether they're going to the website directly from my video or not, like, they're going to see that and they're going to remember that. How can you make that video or photo, like, so impactful where they see it and they're like, that's really cool, or that product looks unique, or like, wow, like, I never thought of something like that, but that'll always be in the back of their head, you know? And how they say, like, I'm not sure what the number is now, but, like, oh, it takes 8 times for someone to see something. It's like, make those 8 times impactful enough where by the 8th time, they're checking out and they're stoked on it. Not just a bunch of mirror selfies where they're like, okay, cool. Like, and I think that, like, bare minimum is kind of like my generation. Like, I'm going to do the bare minimum. I'm like, no, I'm going to show up and show out, because at the end of the day, like, if this is my last day, am I stoked on that video or not? And I think sharing that to the brands too, it's like, that's how they should hit influencers with these campaigns. Not like, obviously creative freedom is amazing because it gives at least me, like, more of an opportunity to do more. But, like, at the same time, that bare minimum, like, comes in and I'm like, no, guys, like, we got to make this better. But there's definitely space for brands. And I've definitely seen it the most, like, on TikTok, where brands are, like, giving people probably closer to my age access to the TikToks, and you start seeing their comments. Like, ironically, like, no plug, Trojan is, like, popping on TikTok because whoever is running their TikTok is so funny. Like, I'm not even joking you. I've never been more entertained by, like, a brand that I've seen on TikTok in a while.
I gotta check it out. They've been
they
really
were,
great socially.
Dude, whoever is doing their comments, and, like, they'll go on, like, popular videos and, like, comment some funny stuff. I'm like, this is amazing. And that's just, like, where that relatableness comes in, you know? Yeah. And it's like, rather than looking at it from such a high level where it's like, obviously the brand has to be professional, but like, you got to be relatable. Like, we're all human, we all get it. And, like, when you start putting more, like, creativity and jokes behind specific things, it's like, it's a freaking, you know, like, why am I scrolling their TikTok? Like, it's amazing. And I think, like, every brand can do that, but you just have to, like, open up that segue of opportunity to allow a little bit more of that, like, relatableness, where it's like people can fall in love with it more.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I mean, you have to act the way the platform dictates, right? If you show up and you're the same person on every platform, it's like, well, who cares then, you know?
Yeah, maybe for Facebook with an older demographic, like, yeah, you can be a little bit more serious, but like, you're not going to sell a serious product on a fun platform. Like, it's never going to work. Like, you have to adapt. Like, that's what us as creators are, and trending, and like why we all strive is because we are constantly adapting to new algorithms, new trends and stuff like that, and the brands need to do that as well. And I think what's challenging is like you're going from a traditional marketing approach now to like a new world of social media, and the brands don't quite understand like that adaptation of like, there's kids on this app, like how can we make these kids laugh, how can we entertain these kids, not that they're all kids, but like this younger demographic to like latch onto our brand and be part of that. But you can't bring like traditional marketing into like a TikTok, like scroll next, thanks. Like the attention span's like 3 seconds now. Like how can you catch them? And so I think like brands working with creators specifically on just like those eye-catching, like, you know, that is going to be the most important for them when it comes to trying to grow and be big on a platform the way that they're doing. It's like they took a bunch of young kids, I'm sure, like my age or like 25, like relate this to that, like make that happen, whatever that is, and they gave them that trust, and now they're popping. But like you can't bring, I mean, I'm sure you could, but like a 40-year-old to traditional like marketing to TikTok, I'm like, dude, it's just not gonna work. Like you need to like throw some like little millennials in there, and like I don't know, Gen Z. I don't even know what generation I am, but yeah, I just like that adaptation's like super important, and I think that's where brands are gonna thrive. Those that do decide to adapt to that algorithm and that demographic on each platform are going to succeed.
Yeah. I think a key word that you hit there too is entertainment. You're trying to entertain people, right? I mean, TikTok says they're the #1 entertainment app, right? For a good reason. We are there to entertain. Brands are entertainers. And I think they've always sort of played in that field a little bit, but this is just much different, and it moves so much quicker.
So quick
than anything else,
it is
right?
entertainment, and they forget that sometimes. They're like, it's marketing, but it's entertainment. Like like finding that fine line where it's like you're getting what you want displayed for the brand, as well as like getting that engagement in there to kind of mix it up. And that's where I think the struggle comes in, just from more of a traditional marketing approach. It's like, it is entertainment, and like what steps are you going to take to make it get there, you know, and get attention.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's good for brands to realize too, it's like, hey, it's not just Demi here. It's Demi, it's her videographer. She has, you know, you're working with people, you're collabing, right? You're doing a whole bunch of stuff, because what we see a lot of brands doing is just kind of putting like one person in charge of TikTok and giving them like no support, no resources, nothing. And it's like, well, of course that's going to fall flat, right? This is like a whole business in and of itself.
Effort. Yeah, it's a team
effort. Exactly. And I think, you know, you see a lot of your skills coming out too. I think the most recent example is probably how you took what is traditionally the first pitch, where you just kind of go out, say hello, throw the ball. You said, I don't think so, right?
Yeah. Nope.
And you went out and just like I think Barstool said it was like the best first pitch of like all time, right? So, I mean, you were on House of Highlights, you're on Barstool. It's like across the internet, I think it was like 150 million views, like absolutely viral video, just because you took a different perspective on what could be done instead of what has been done, right?
Most definitely. And that's where it's like coming up with these off the wall ideas. Like, if I'm going to do this, right, you take this opportunity. Same thing with working with brands. Like, take this campaign and think about, like, if you were the consumer, like, what would be cool for you to see, you know? Like, sometimes brands tell me this. I'm like, flip it the other way. Like, if you were watching that, would you be entertained? No. Next, you know? So it's like, those things work hand in hand, whether you're making content or, like, working on a campaign. It's like, what is that next thing that's just right there where you're like, oh, that's sick, you know? Like, I'm not just going to go out in front of 40,000 people and throw a ball. Like, I suck at throwing it either way, so at least do something I'm good at. Like, at least do something good in there.
That's so true. That's a good point. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's funny. Yeah. Well, was it? I mean, was that something you just decided to do on a whim, or was that like actually sort of planned out? You thought about, okay, this is what I'm going to do.
Okay, so I was gonna do so. There were obviously restrictions on what I was allowed to do. I was like, it'd be sick if I just like flipped across the field and threw it, but I had to stay in one place. And obviously Simone, her video went viral like the week before, even though it was like an older video. And I was like, well,
Yep.
I can't do that. Like, I'm not queen
Well,
like
wait.
her.
You got to tell the listeners what video you're referring to, because they may not know.
Oh yeah, so Simone did a standing full, which is like a super complex trick. It's really challenging, and no one's gonna look as good as her doing it, right? So I was like, how can I do that? Something similar that will break the internet, but in my own way, but is also like different enough, if that makes sense.
Right.
I was like,
Yeah, totally.
I can't do like that's the hardest flip to do. Like standing, that's the hardest flip. So there's no going up from there, you know? So
Yep.
how can I do something in place that's like different that will also break the internet where people like look at it from like a similar high level, but obviously what I did is not nearly as challenging. People will never know that, but it's just different. So
Yeah,
I was
totally.
like, okay, I'm gonna throw the ball from the splits, and I'm just gonna jump as high as I can and drop it to the splits, and people are gonna be like, oh, you know, like
Yeah.
where does that come from? Because the backflip's not gonna do that. So I was like,
Right.
where is that like shock factor gonna come in? I was like, I'm gonna jump as high as I can and drop so hard that people are like, ouch. Like you have to have like you got to think about the reaction. I'm like, there's no reaction after her amazing flip. So it's like, how can I create that reaction that's gonna create like the stimulant that's gonna take the video everywhere? So
Yep.
like literally, I sat there and I was like, literally, what can I do that's gonna create a similar reaction, but not copy her? So I just literally sat outside and I was just throwing a bunch of tricks. I was like, no. I was like, I just have to jump as high as I can and break myself to make this happen. I'm just kidding. Hey, but it worked.
It did work. Yeah, it absolutely worked, right? But I think you're right to hit on there, because I think brands can do a lot of those similar things, even on like TikTok, right? I mean, there are a million different challenges and things that happen like every single day, right? If a brand jumps in, adds their own sort of personality or spice to it, that's all you need to do, right? We're not asking for the world here. You don't need to be a famous Olympic gymnast that can do, 5,000 amazing flips in the air. You can do something a little bit more simple, but you're right. The shock value, I think the reaction,
The shock value, the reaction, people like that's what's important. And like, that's the stuff that people remember, especially working like with brands. Like that's where people are like, oh, that one video that I saw of that girl wearing those pink pants, like
Right.
they're like that video with the, like where's that correlation when it comes to like making a campaign for a brand where you add that entertainment shock factor to the product that like correlates in someone's head, even if they're not familiar with me or my channels. They're like, that one girl that did that one thing with those pants on, or like she had a ball in her hand, like whatever that may be. It's like how can you create those two things together that stick with the person?
Yeah, totally. It's kind of incredible that, I mean, you're not a CMO, right? Like you didn't go to school to study marketing, not that I know of, right? But like you're able to so eloquently piece all of this stuff together just from your own sort of lived experience on creating content, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
and I think that's also where like the generational gap comes in, because none of these creators are even in school anymore,
That's
and
right.
it's like,
yeah.
but we're the ones like doing it every day, where it's like we're getting the market research from that aspect where like this works, this doesn't work, because we're doing it every day.
Yeah, exactly.
So when a brand like comes, you're like, you gotta like, sometimes obviously it's challenging to put faith of a specific campaign in someone that's like so young hands, but like they're the one doing this every day and understanding like, especially if it's gonna go on their platform, like their algorithm, what works, what doesn't work, and like where that shock factor can be in their own way. So I think like it's super important to kind of have those. I don't think brands do enough meetings with creators, and I think that's the problem. I think that there's always like an agency involved, at least that I've had experience in the past, where it's like you don't really get that connection, where it's like the ideas are like 80% there. I'm like, dude, if I could have just hopped on the call with the brand and like established that idea that could be that much better, it's like, how are you going to write a song, when not all of you are together? Like, you got to be together and like create off of each other. So I think that's the most unique thing about you guys, and which I absolutely love and appreciate you guys for so much, is like you allow that relationship where it's like we all win if the video does better. We all win if the brand's happy. But I don't know why there's that disconnect. I don't know if the agencies are like, I want to make sure that that's my relationship and not theirs. But like at the end of the day, as long as you understand we're all a team and we're all working towards the same goal, it's like, why shouldn't we all sit and create the best it can be. Put those marketing dollars to work. Like, if you're going to pay a lot of money, like, I want you to be stoked. Like, I don't want you to pay a bunch of money and then be like, oh, like, this was okay. You know, like, I don't want to be that person. Like, because then it's my brand too, you know?
Yep.
I want the brand to be like, dang, like, she lives by her brand. She created something sick for us, even though, like, it was a challenging product to work with or whatever that may be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
But like, you guys are elite with that. You're like, yeah, go talk to the brand. Like, you figured out. Like, I'm like, yes, this is perfect. Let's go.
Yeah, but you're right. I think you've got to have those conversations. Otherwise, what are we doing? And I do think a lot of times agencies, talent agents, or just creative agencies, they do sort of get in the way.
They do.
And it is a little problematic because you could do so many different things. I think that's sort of why the agency world is reinventing itself now. And a lot of agencies like us are coming out on top because we actually want to service the brand, right? We're actually trying to like benefit them in a lot of different ways. And it's through, through our relationships and our partnerships with amazing creators like you, we're able to actually come through and say, well, look at this awesome idea. Like, we've actually talked to these people. This is what's happening. But yeah, I think you're right. I think brands probably just need access to these creators. Yeah.
Yeah, and like, the agents don't care what you do.
Not at all.
So like, an agent's like, oh, what do you want to do? I'm like, yo, you got to tell them that I'm about to do this sick thing. And then they send the email. I'm like, yo, bro, like, were you even listening to what I said? Like, you just made this cool idea, took all of my passion out of it, and like put like a 2-liner that like blows.
Totally,
like,
totally.
No, like, I need to talk to them in person and tell them that this is going to be great. Because sometimes they're like, yeah, I want 3 ideas. I'm like, no, I'm going to give you one, and it's going to be the best idea, and we're going to run with it, and it's going to be sick, and you guys are going to be stoked. But like, there's that like passion disconnect, which is just it's so discouraging, because as a creator, you're like, I want my creative freedom, but like, it doesn't. That's where, honestly, that lack of like communication allows for that bare minimum. And it sucks because like, the agent's like, here's the bare minimum of what she's gonna do, and then I'm like, oh, like, this idea got approved, then whatever, like, I'll just go stand here and look pretty. Like, I don't know, like, there's so much more to it, and I think the brands that are gonna come out on top are the ones that are talking to us directly and hearing us, hearing our voice, hearing our creative, like.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Actually, YouTube just partnered up some top YouTube influencers with a few CMOs. And it was like Nestle, Peloton, and GM. And they were having conversations. That was a little PR-esque, so I don't know what the true value of those conversations were. But it's interesting because I think your idea has a lot of merit, right? It's like, how do you? And brands are busy, creators are busy, so getting them on the call is challenging, but it's something we do for almost every single one of our campaigns.
Yeah,
because
it's like,
it
seriously
is important.
The best. So yeah, and it's like, it's allowed me to like understand more of what the brand wants. Like, getting a deck is cool and all, but you're like, if the brand could be like, this is our product, this is why we are passionate about it, like, where does your passion come in? It's not just like, oh, here you go, have fun. And I think like, with the campaigns that we've worked on, like, I've called them directly, like, does this work? Do you like this? Do you not like this? Like, is this a liability? Like, can I do this? And they're like, yeah, this is good. Like, stray away from this, do that. Rather than, like, I don't know, like, when you send this basic idea and they just say yes or no, you're like, how far from this can I go? But you can go super far if you are understanding the passion behind their product and why they want it to do what it does.
Yeah. I think that's so smart. And I think that's actually why the direct-to-consumer stuff is taking off the way it is, because these brands are passionate. They talk directly to their consumers, and the brands themselves are personalities, right? When you look at their social media followings, 100%. Like, especially on Instagram, it's like, oh, I understand who this brand is. It's harder to understand who a big name conglomerate brand, like, who are you? What do you care about, really? Probably not as much, right? But if you are a startup or a smaller company that is 200 or less people, you have a tremendous amount of passion and you have a lot of creativity. I just interviewed the co-founder of Poppy, which is that prebiotic soda that's like everywhere. J-Lo just had it like in her Instagram video, and she was saying the same thing. She's like, she's out there talking to creators, right? And she's out there trying TikTok and figuring out what's working and what's not. And that's a C-level person at this. It's a direct to consumer brand, and they're killing it. They're like the #1 beverage in their category. But that's why, because the passion is there.
Yeah, and that's so important. Like, what do you stand for?
Exactly.
And like, for the people that you're hiring for your campaigns, like, do they stand for the same things? Or are they going to portray your brand the way that you want it to be portrayed? Like, my job as a creator isn't to just create, but like I want the brands to be stoked on what it is I'm creating, not just like, oh, here, check. Like there's so much more to that. And I think that's where like I really strive to stand out when it comes to doing campaigns with multiple influencers. Like I want them to see mine and be like, she listened to what we are passionate about, what we strive for, what we want the brand to stand for. And she like put it in her own way, you know?
Totally.
And I think like that's important for the brand to understand too. It's like the brand has its own identity. If you don't have that identity, like what are people following along with? What are people relating to? Why are people attaching to your brand? And that's where these startups really come in, because they have like their story. They have their passion behind their brand and what they stand for and their brand pillars. And every time they're creating content or any sort of marketing campaign, they're portraying that. And like that's the story that people follow. And I think the lack thereof, especially as the brands start to get bigger and just kind of like having obviously bigger teams that are just like, yeah, sure, sounds good. Like, they start to lose that.
But then you mentioned Trojan earlier. That's a huge company, and they're out there doing fun, interesting stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I think just to flip it on its head, if you're a huge brand with, a crazy amount of like money to spend in marketing, you've got to reach, a huge audience. You're going to work with big creators, but you also have the ability to get access to more things. You have budgets 100%. To do bigger, tell bigger, bolder stories. So like, why not dive in that way?
100%. I totally agree.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, listen, this has been such a fun conversation. I think
we could go all day, girl.
I think we could. Soon. I know. You got to get back out here. It's summertime in Tennessee, and it's amazing.
Hey, I'll be there next week.
Do it. Get on the flight. Come on out.
I'm serious. I'm coming next week.
Are you?
Yes.
Oh my God. Well, yeah. Come on out. Come on out. Absolutely. I think we just bought a boat. So if you want to come out and get on the lake, let me know.
Bullet.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but no, hey, this has been super fun. So I appreciate you coming on. And for those who are listening, check out Demi. It's Demi Bagby on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, everywhere. Give her a shout. And if you want, if you're interested in partnering up with her, give us a shout as well.
Thanks, guys. Let's go.
Yeah, let's
show up and show out.
That's right.
Let's go. Thanks for having me. You're awesome. Can't wait to see you next week.
Do it.
You are a legend. Thank you for providing so many new opportunities and such an awesome new creative way to continue to strive. So I'm
absolutely
stoked.
Our pleasure. Cool.